Well, what have we here? I think you're pregnant. This backup just keeps giving to me in terms of providing content that it's interesting to talk about. Interesting to me, at least. I didn't think it could give me more than the Joker calling Power Girl a veal cutlet. I think I'm in love. You can do whatever you like to me, you sweet little veal cutlet of a woman. But it found a way. Life finds a way. And it's a way that if you're tapped into a certain segment of fandom, or have the algorithm tweaked a certain way, or if it's picked up enough traction that started to be recommended outside of its usual niche, then you may have heard or seen talk of a pregnant Joker. Pregnant in quotes. And yes, those quotes are necessary. There's been outrage, there's been amusement, there's been meh, rumors that it's a psyop, or perhaps deep bait. There is a more obvious joke, but it's real early in the video, and I'll save it for a bit later. We need to leave some low-hanging fruit on the ground for later. Now, in regards to it being bait, it could possibly be, but there's also the possibility that this is entirely in keeping with the backup as it stands and as it has been up to this point, time of recording. I'm not gonna lie, my bait senses are tingling a little bit, but if this is a lure, I was drawn to it for a couple of reasons. One, it is doubtful I would get to make a thumbnail this ludicrous for quite some time. The pregnant thumbnail? Glorious. You've got to find the joy in life where you can. And two, the discourse surrounding this for me proved far more fascinating and said a lot more about the state of fandom and online communication, YouTube, a whole bunch of things than this 8-page backup and this one panel of said backup ever could. Yes, one page spawned articles, videos, responses. So let's take a look at some of this, because this didn't occur in a vacuum. There's a lot going on here surrounding this little backup. So much so that I had to sleep on this video. Get well rested before doing it. And if you're looking for a good night's sleep, then check out this video's sponsor, Helix. Helix makes premium customizable mattresses and bedding, shipped to your door and tailored to your sleep needs, which of course vary from individual to individual. Your dream mattress is determined by having you take a sleep quiz so they can glean based on your sleep habits what mattress will work for you. And if you have a partner, you can take the quiz together, so it'll work for both of you. With Helix, buying your mattress is stress-free and fun, since you know you're getting something customized to your unique sleep needs. And the quiz can really highlight aspects of your sleeping habits you may not have contemplated before. Based on our results, we got paired with the Dusk mattress. I'm a stomach and side sleeper normally, and my husband is the same, and we're all about that medium firmness. Not too hard, not too soft. This process makes you Goldilocks, just right. You know, she stayed in her house and actually had to unwrap her own mattress. Everything you need is included and the setup is very intuitive, even if your little feline friends try to get in on the action.
Oh, we got Theo.
So you can have your new bed up and ready for dressing within a matter of minutes, depending on how strong/speedy you are.
Are you comfortable?
I am comfortable.
I've had my Helix mattress for a couple of months now, and I sleep so much better on it. I have less back pain due to my gremlin computer worker lifestyle. I'm also much higher off the ground, so I feel like I'm sleeping on a cloud. My husband likes it too and sleeps much better. What do you think, Theo? And we can't keep our cats and kids off it. It's comfortable for everyone. With your Helix sleep mattress, you get a 100-night sleep trial along with a 10-year warranty. And there are financing options and flexible payment plans. If you live in the US, there are also free delivery options on the table. I love my Helix, and I think you would too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Helix. Click the link down below or go to helix.com/casuallycomics for up to $200 off your Helix sleep mattress plus 2 free pillows, which we definitely also appreciate, because if there's anything that gets crushed fast in our house, it's pillows. Crushed harder than the Joker's head by Zatanna. But before we get into that, we need to define just what this comic is and the overall tone and nature of this backup, as well as what truly transpired in this issue. Because it's very easy to just separate a couple of panels out and isolate them, but then you don't get the full picture. So let's apply some context, why not? I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and it's time to take a look at a panel that for many made them stop laughing, which is very apt because that's the comic that it hails from. Joker, the man who stopped laughing. Specifically the backup story contained therein. This series is ongoing time of recording, and we're at the 4th issue. It's written by Matthew Rosenberg, and 4 issues in, the art of the main story has been consistently by Carmine Di Giandomenico, and the backup also written by Rosenberg with art by Francesco Francavilla. The two tales are quite distant from one another. That was how I ended up talking about the veal cutlet in the first place, because there was the serious main story and then that. Although we have some quotes where Rosenberg is going to claim that that is entirely deliberate. Now when it comes to backups in comics, they're not new. Time of recording in 2022, they're bringing them back more at DC. In the classic sense, when they occurred, the tried and true method was that they would usually feature another character. But that is not always the case, and some of the backups that are occurring right now in ongoings, that is not the case. You're having backups featuring the same characters. Chip Zdarsky's Batman both does the same thing, but while his backup features either stories that are building out the main story either in the past or a side story in the present with either the same characters or side characters from that book, the Joker series is another beast. if it is doing that, it's not very obvious about it. Now this main series, Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing, was a relaunch after the previous Joker ongoing, helmed by James Tynion IV, which featured a punchline backup, ended at issue 15 in 2022. And so a new Joker series was commissioned. Rosenberg talked about some of the pressures of balancing that past story with the new story that he wanted to tell. Yes, I have quotes, "We must go in deep." He stated, "I think the idea is we're sort of treating it like a continuation of what they were doing, but also a completely fresh start. So if you haven't read it before, you should. I'm a huge fan of what they did. We want to make sure that those fans know what they're getting and understand it and it feels natural. But also by the end of what we're doing, it should feel like a completely different book and a completely different experience if we did our jobs right." So it's a complicated balancing act, but I feel like we've pulled it off in the first few issues. I feel like no one's going to be lost and everyone's going to realize that we're going someplace different with it. So when he talked about the main story, this is how he described it. People will take over and he, the Joker, runs into some of his old co-workers. It's so weird calling them co-workers, in the form of Two-Face and Black Mask and people like that. And they're not exactly welcoming to him coming back. So that's where we sort of come in, is that the Joker is ready to get started again at being the classic Joker and finding that maybe there isn't quite room for him. Now the main story is doing more than just working through the idea of the Joker trying to reclaim his position as the clown prince of crime of Gotham, but it's also questioning whether there's more than one Joker and which Joker is the real Joker. Our Joker. Rosenberg did also discuss the backup, and he states here, and I quote, "We have Francesco Francavilla drawing them, so they're beautiful and amazing. And yeah, the backup stories are unusual. It's not like a traditional backup story where it's a separate idea exactly. What they are as the story goes is going to sort of change and evolve, but they're very strange backup stories is what I can say. They're funny and weird, and they totally feel very different from what we're doing. They're much more comedic and much more wacky, but there is a reason for that, and it's going to become clear as the story goes that these aren't just different Joker stories exactly. That's all I can really say. But they're important to who the Joker is, who our Joker is in this book. They're very key to unlocking that in a mysterious way." That sounds like something that either it could tie into the main story or at the same time it could not. It's very vague and nebulous and leaves room for it to go in whatever direction it needs to. There are some glimpses in these backups that allow it to play with the idea that maybe they could come together and tie in with the main story, in that in a couple of the backups you've seen two Jokers, such as in the little Veal Cutlet first backup where Power Girl ends up dating a version of the Joker that walks out of the Mirror Master's mirror. And now this pregnant Joker story also gives us two Jokers. There's some strong Clayface imagery at play in the backup, and then the main cover of the issue also had Clayface on it. So it's one of those things like, are these threads or are these just things that are being thrown out there in hopes that people will connect them? Time will tell. However, if it is meant to be an instance where this backup story is meant to be how all this appears to the Joker, for example, or some zany warped Joker vision, or some "ha, gotcha, you thought they were separate, but they've come together," this backup may be going too hard in its different direction to pull that off credibly. These backups have such a different style and feature things like characters dying every issue and then returning. No hero's powers are scaled correctly, nor are they act in character. The Joker is lovesick on a Pepe Le Pew level. It's to the point where there is now a running gag that has become the story opening with him being beaten up by a female superhero. That's happened 3 out of the 4 times time of recording. Also, he's getting off on it and loving it. There's some kink happening here. Big step on me mommy energy. This Joker's not a Joker that matches with pretty much any prior iteration, even the comedic ones. He's very much his own separate thing. A Looney Tune version almost. And for this backup, with all its Silver Age puns but also adult level jokes, for all of that, whether one finds it funny or not, to come together with the gory, gritty first story in a believable and satisfying, non-absurdist way seems like it would be a huge hill to climb. But for some, mileage varied. They love the juxtaposition, think it's a wonderful palate cleanser, think it's exactly what the creator says that it is, a fun, wacky backup. With lots of little insider jokes. Now, of course, we're not there yet, so this could all pay off amazingly. I could be sitting here having to eat a bowl of veal cutlets because of the sheer mastery. But at the moment, we're at issue 4 and Pregnant Joker, and so let's take a look at that. So before we go on, just a brief question. Do you feel that this is being set up to be interconnected with the first story? If so, why? If not, why not? And if it's not, would you rather that it remain unconnected? That it just be its own kind of separate comedic thing? Now, all of this setup has a purpose, and that is to highlight that the tone of the backup in issue 4 doesn't come out of nowhere. It's the standard for this series, and the humor and the jokes, whether they land for you, are on par with what has been going on for the prior issues. So this has been the standard for all of them. This series goes for a lot more of a meme style or fanfic inspired humor, the latter being very dialed up in this issue. So what actually happens? So this issue is called Knocked Upside Down because these backups love a pun. This backup opens like many of the series do with our Joker being beaten by a female superhero and being into it and hitting on her. I don't mean to offend her, I just think she and I would make a great couple. She's a good dresser and I'm smart and handsome. What is wrong with you? I'm sorry, I just thought you and I could start a family. You could stop doing tricks for money. And I'd stop committing crimes. That was a she dresses like a prostitute joke. Just like there was a similar look at how she dresses joke in the Power Girl issue. There's a lot of little kind of derogatory digs like that coming from the Joker. He likes to be questionable to the ladies he's hitting on, I guess. He is being attacked by another goody two-shoes who goes by the name Zatanna, and she's turning into a big pain in his belly. Yeah, you're gonna be able to tell right away whether this type of humor works for you or not. But also there's several types going on top of each other. It's just throwing pretty much everything at you. Visual gags, puns, secret dirty jokes, Silver Age jokes, just everything. Fake editor's notes. Now he keeps on talking about how great their kids would be. And for some reason at this point she casts a spell on him while she's stepping on him with her big boot and its heel in the mud. I see you. No shame, but don't think I don't see you. It was more subtle this issue, but I see, or was it less? Because it's such an obvious visual reference. Just, yep, step on me, mommy. So what she says is, no one else will ever have your baby backwards, making it a spell. But why though? That's the thing, the occurrences in this backup are absurd to the max. Why would Zatanna, a practiced magician who knows the extent of her power, do something like this? It's one of those things where the jokes supersede. Also, imagine if they reversed this. But for some, that is the point of absurdist humor, and that's what works for them. But the next morning, he wakes up and his belly is huge. Could he be pregnant?
Am I pregnant? Am I pregnant? Am I pargant? Am I gregnant?
Well, what have we here? I think you're pregnant. I think you're right. Do we have a good OBGYN we use? You ready? Ready as I'll ever be, Atomic Skull. Dr. Phosphorus! Atomic Skull never even finished pre-med. So then they tell him that he should just push. This is very much meant to be a comedic pregnancy. It's very much relying on the lol man pregnant. There are a couple of running gags happening in this scene. The one with Dr. Phosphorus is a couple of things. One, he got called because he has doctor in his name, not because of his credentials. Two, Joker keeps calling him other Skull characters' names. Then you have a visual gag where he says push and the Joker pushes Gaggy. But instead of going into labor, he throws up and the vomit spells barf out on it. So as you can see, some are gonna find this layered, clever humor and others are gonna find it juvenile. It really depends how you look at it. And what is it? It's mud. Sentient mud. Perhaps clay. It could be a nod to Clayface. There was that animated series episode where Clayface split a part of himself off and she gained her own sentience and forgot she was of him and in a way was his daughter, but then has to reunite with him later in the episode. It's very traumatic for Robin. Another Clayface nod or reference it could be is to Batman 159, when Clayface impersonated the Joker, and it was a Joker-Clayface feud. This was the Matt Hagen version, so some wonder, is this a way to get Matt back into the mainstream? More Matt? Who else remembers when they did all the Clayfaces at the time getting together and Matt was dead, so he was just goo, but Basil Carlo still tried to bring him back to life so he could be included? Good times. Gaggy dies again in this issue, gunned down by jackanapes as they try to catch the baby, but when they come upon it, it's morphed into a little Joker, and so Joker likes it now. Weeks later, he goes to Zatanna's show where she has a Will Magic for Food sign up and introduces the now child-sized Joker to her as their son. The end. So, pregnant? Sorta, kinda, not really, just using the imagery. It's much more for that shock value or comedic value, or perhaps it's meant to be both of that image. And it's very brief. There are other references running throughout this, like when they're hunting down the baby, there are some Thing references. And so that's the story as it stands. In terms of being one of the backups, it's very on par for it. He's faked his own death, he's tried to date Power Girl, now he's got a little mini-me because Zatanna cast a spell on him. It's very much in the, oh, look at how wacky and random this backup is, that has been the tone so far, unless it isn't and it's secretly all connected. So that was the story. Now for the reaction and why it's not surprising. Was it bait? And if it was, doesn't matter. Once I saw this panel, I knew it was gonna make the rounds. It's just such an incongruous image for most that it draws the eye. For most, it falls into the realm of ludicrous or out there, whereas ludicrously amusing, offensive, or unnoteworthy will vary. Not everybody is of the internet and hangs out and has seen either past pregnant comic covers, because this is not the first time, just the abundance of mpreg that is on the internet if you hang out in certain fandom circles. But for most average people, this image is gonna come across as, whoa, what's going on? But not just that, it's the kind of image that you can tell is gonna have that reaction if you're the type of person who likes to make content of many different kinds. So as a content creator for videos, websites, articles, so many different things, you can tell that this could be a very lucrative image. It could generate a lot of clicks. There's a couple of reasons. It's got a good color scheme. You can easily frame it either by itself or against something else. And it will pop, as they say. It comes with a built-in title. Accuracy is not often a concern in this arena. And if it prompts uncritical responses, such as people only reading the headline, concern that varies depending on the creator. So you've got yourself something that you can hopefully get random users to be interested in, as well as your established viewer base. And on top of that, you can now manipulate the title because the one that's given to you is so simple and leaves you so much room to play. You've got two words essentially, pregnant Joker, and now you have so much more space. What comes after it? Where do you put it? How do you kind of frame it? You can customize it, ascribe value to it, positive, negative, didactic, wherever your whims take you basically. This means that you can tailor your video in terms of the type of audience you're seeking just based on how you title it and how you frame it. You can be searching for the audience you have, the audience you want, the audience you feel you have to cater to. There are lots of things that can happen. And then on top of that, there are so many different stances and ways that it can be presented inside of the video itself. Some people are going to feel very passionately about it and want to talk about it. Others will just feel that they should talk about it for views or clicks. This is why for many there is the question of, is this bait? Because it's difficult to generate online attention around a work. It's more difficult than it seems. Some things lend themselves to it more than others, and despite being so popular in the mainstream in the character sense, comics are very much still niche, and many times the circles are very insular, so to have a moment where it appears that it could break out and have some kind of mainstream appeal is not the most common time of recording. And it's sadly usually for something that has nothing to do with the overall plot or quality of the book, and instead is one of those random moments that makes a "what? How is this happening?" headline. Like, whoa, these people are getting married, these people are coming out, these people are breaking up, this person's pregnant. So to get people talking can be something that sometimes creators can seek to do intentionally, that being the creators of the comics themselves. Then add to that content creators who are looking for something to talk about with various degrees of urgency depending upon the type of channel you have, how often you post, what you need to maintain that kind of momentum. YouTube has many different types of not just categories but content creation. Then you also have to branch out to the others. Twitch, TikTok, they all have their own kind of metas and their own ways that they work, their own ecosystems. But one thing that is true of all of them is the more impassioned conversation one can create, the better. The more likely you are to draw people in and cause some kind of reaction which will draw traffic. Be that for views or conversation, because not everyone's goal is views. Some desire community or just enjoy creating. For some it's a fusion of all the above, but the quest can have side effects. In this way you can find certain topics falling into situations where intentionally or unintentionally they become outrage bait. And then if a topic becomes popular enough or an image, you can see the replication process begin. More and more people talking because one can see that it's generating some kind of response. And then the viewer, that can cause another kind of feedback reaction. The idea that this must be a very big, important topic because so many people are talking about it. Or annoyance at the topic's prevalence in the sense that people are overreacting if they disagree with whatever dominant narrative arises. But in reality, sometimes it can just be a microcosm or a brief moment. Sometimes it can be a big, huge, overarching thing, but oftentimes that is not the case. It's actually a very small moment that's been made to feel very big. The thing is, when it comes to the actual makers of comics baiting or trying to create things that can be talked about, this of course has happened, and it's happened for a variety of reasons. To generate press, to troll or bother people, just in hopes of getting the work out there, some sense of personal acclaim or clout for the lulz. And then on the other side, you have both creators and fans who have come into contact with many different types of these attempts, and so some are hypersensitive to it, while others will not have encountered them at all or are not bothered by them. So you're going to have a wide range of reactions. The thing is, people have been attacked in the past, and so some are more wary, and so some of also the off-the-cuff angry responses can be a bit more understandable when viewed through that lens. Though of course, overreactions can also run rampant. Again, as mentioned earlier, it's going to vary. Not everybody who talks about a trending topic is doing it just because it's trending. But it's always important when one is viewing such content to bear that in mind, that there are many motivations that could be at play. Basically, rule number one, son, trust nobody. Now, as for this series, as mentioned, this story is very in keeping with the tone of all the others, and the jokes are of the same caliber, and they all made it through editorial and the like. So it is also possible that this may not be bait at all, that this may just be another issue of this comic, and that this comic is just trying so hard to be wacky and out there that it lends itself to having these kind of off-the-wall panels like this, and that no one thought it would really be that big of a deal. For some are unaware of exactly how fraught things have become online, or how much things can be taken and run with. So let's see the various ways in which you can make it a big deal. Now, on top of this panel being easy to label and eye-catching content, this also falls into the realm of easy content. It's a short backup story. If one doesn't want, you don't even have to expand outside of it. Just bam, react. in and out like the mud baby. You can write an article, look, this happened, here are some reactions, done. You can do a video, look, this happened, look, it's hilarious, or look, it's awful, done. It can be so incredibly quick. Because the potentiality that's going to have such a yield and return, it could just be a no-brainer for some to just pick it up and run with it. It also lends itself well to multiple narratives, be those beliefs that are genuinely held by people or ones that people are playing into. For example, for those functioning on the idea that DC Comics or modern comics are dying, or that they have a general quality control problem, just overall. A panel like this can serve to encapsulate this point, and so it can be presented that way. And for some who are presenting it that way, they may genuinely feel that that is the case, while for others it's just a good quick example to get something out there for an audience that is looking for that kind of content. There are also some who presented this panel as a signal of some kind, talking about trans identities. This one is interesting in that it can be presented a couple of ways, both positive and negative. You can see some taking the stance that this is a clear indication that DC Comics is embracing identity and gender politics, and then that can be framed as negative or positive. Or you can see the other side, people saying that this is insulting and mocking and not something that should have been put forth in this day and age when these issues are so hot button, and that this is framing it in a negative and harmful light. The idea that I didn't think we could make jokes about that anymore, or you shouldn't be making jokes about that anymore, and either of those statements could also be applied positively or negatively. Of course, some feel you should be able to joke about anything, and people are overanalyzing, she says while overanalyzing, and some just think it's funny. Those are just a couple of takes. There are many ways one can present this. I know I can hear some of you, but you're here and you're talking about it. Yes, I am. I just find these moments really fascinating, and sometimes it's interesting to engage with them as they're evolving. The thing is, regardless of how these topics are presented, sometimes there is far more dispassion on the creator side, be that any level, from the content creator to the article writer to the actual comic book author themselves, than is perceived by people who are consuming the work. And that can sometimes lead to a disconnect in terms of emotional connection to what is occurring. Watching this pick up steam and slowly unfold and get all kinds of videos and then showing up late in terms of internet terms has been a fun time. It's one of those things where you also get to be introspective, for I knew I would make this video.
That's gold, Jerry. Gold!
Now, to take this one panel and say it is indicative of the death of an entire comic industry would not be a very objective statement. It may feel that way subjectively to some, but to do a proper assessment of where the quality of this panel rests, one would have to then ascertain where it is in terms of the rest of DC's lineup currently, so all of the 80-something books that are coming out at the time. The other big company, Marvel, then of course some of the main indies to see where it's ranking, and then you'd have to decide what year you're comparing it against. How far back are we going? If one wanted to get some kind of firm assessment that this is either a firm, proper quality slide, or that this is an indication that something drastic has changed, or does this stand out against all of the rest? Because without doing that comparison, it's all very anecdotal and subjective, which of course is entirely fine. No one has to go out and do that kind of assessment, but if one is not done that assessment, then the assertion that this is a clear representation of the end of anything is not one that is based on anything other than pure speculation or just personal feeling, which again is entirely valid. One can always definitely make an argument for lack of editorial control or decline if one so chooses. One can also issue a sales argument, but all of these would require looking at the book overall. It's just sometimes these speculations are taken and applied as facts. There's also very little credit being given to the explanation by the author himself that this comic is trying, like it's trying to be wacky. So this may just be a very simple case of it trying too hard. Many things try too hard. People try too hard all the time. So that's one thing I want to hear from you. Do you think that this truly is a death knell, or that it's trying too hard, or that it is an indication of a general slide in quality? Do you think it's even noteworthy? Or is this something that has happened before and will happen again? It's just an image that people play with on occasion. Or is it clever and some kind of flexing of Joker lore that we're going to see unfold, for this backup will mean something? Is this bait? It could be. It could not be. If it is, my question then becomes, what's the end game? If the goal is make a panel assuming that certain people will pick it up and run with it, and then they do, but then what is the end game? It feels as though there is a step missing. And it's also gonna have presented all kinds of press out there of this panel that's not necessarily gonna do anything for the book or the creator themselves. So in terms of long-term play, if it is bait, I need more masterful bait. This one though, it actually got pretty mainstream. My husband asked me if I was gonna cover it because he'd seen articles. That never happened. The last time that happened was John Kent. So it was a tiny bit of a mini moment. It had a little bit of a moment. But in terms of being a huge controversy that heralds the end, no, not so much. It's also very doubtful that many people are gonna pick up the Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing, because of it. And it's just gonna fade back into being this random Joker series that's happening, unless the next backup can go even harder. And that can just be what this series is. Just commenting not even on the main story, but on random things happening in the backup. So ultimately, who wins, who loses? Sometimes the only way to win is not to play. rambling. And that's where we stand time of recording. If anything else happens, well, maybe we'll be back, if I remember, /care. Given how irreverent some other parts of this work are, it's doubtful that this was some kind of secret virtue signal, but more likely, in my opinion at least, that was lol, look, pregnant man joke. Miles may vary, and you may feel that I'm completely wrong and naive, and of course, I'm sure if you feel that way, you will let me know down below. Personal biases, where you are, what's going on with your life, class, subject positioning, all kinds of things where you're in comic fandom, relationships with the creators, fans, are going to impact how you view things. With all of that rambling done, I want to hear from you. What do you think of this panel? What do you think of this moment? What do you think of this comic? Are you even reading it? Do you not care at all? I want to hear your thoughts down below. Please share. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking this time today to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it. I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.